Yeah.
Brian, what would you give them?
I'm giving them a D. Again, I only avoided the failure because the injuries that they had and the jaw wasn't right. But if we're being honest, it is a failure. But I can't ignore that 3 of their top guys were not themselves in this series.
I gave him a C-. I actually liked the Lakers going into this series. LeBron had something to prove, and AD, if he was healthy, he was the best player on the court at those times. I didn't really have high expectations for the Grizzlies, and they were going to get everybody's best shot because all they did in the regular season was talk that talk, and they couldn't walk it. Dillon Brooks going to need to find a new team.
Yeah, because that was super rough. Okay, as you guys know, I feel like everybody loves a Game 7 in the NBA playoffs.
Yes.
I don't know. That's when things start to get really good. Warriors, Kings coming up kind of exude there in that moment. Okay, so let's get some grades for some NBA teams, shall we? Let's start with the Knicks, who won a playoff series for the first time since I was born in 23 years. That's a lie. Okay, so second time, sorry, in the last 23 seasons. What grade are you giving the Knicks, Wendy, for at this point in Cavs in 5?
I give them a B, which I know might surprise people because, wait a minute, they were awesome and they won 4-1. But I don't actually think they even played their best in that series. That was so remarkable about the way they dominated that matchup was, I don't think Barrett played well in most of the games. Obviously, Julius Randle only really had, in my mind, one really good half and then got hurt at the end. Josh Hart dealt with an ankle injury. Emmanuel Quickley didn't shoot the ball that well. They played well, but they have a capacity to play better, and they're going to have to play better against the Heat, who obviously come in here with a great momentum.
Me and Wendy, we did not communicate before these grades, so I was actually pretty happy to see that I was in line with Wendy because he has forgotten more basketball than I'll ever know. I gave the Knicks a B+ because at the end of the day, this was a 4-5 matchup, so these teams were closely regarded against one another. And the 4-1 Cleveland, maybe that was a little bit surprising, but of all of those names that Wendy mentioned, it paid true and it showed true and it paid dividends. Jalen Brunson was the star in many eyes in that series, and he has the Knicks fans believing, and that is a dangerous, dangerous thing because the last thing we need is more Knicks fans getting any more vocal.
Okay, let's move on to the Western Conference and talk about the Suns, or not the Suns, excuse me, the Clippers, who played the Suns in the first round of the playoffs. What grade would you give them, Wendy?
Incomplete. I used to hate that concept of an incomplete grade, and I would say someone who's tasked with giving grades and saying incomplete was a cop-out. But how can I judge this team? I was with that series, and I can't tell you how excited Ty Lue was after Game 1. He threw this, weird game plan that set the Suns off, sort of off kilter. Kawhi looked awesome, got 38 points, getting to his spots. I think they felt like we're going to be able to get through this series, get Paul George back in the next round, and here we go. And then wham. You can't evaluate them without George and Chris Paul. Without George and Kawhi Leonard. So incomplete and disappointing incomplete.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave him a D. Did not complete the assignment. And I think you have to evaluate the pieces that are presented right in front of you. If Kawhi is going to be there and he was coming back, and Paul George, of course, with the knee, and then Kawhi with the knee. You have to evaluate based off what's actually happening. So I guess it's just further proof, and I know there's been so much discourse over the last couple of weeks about talking about Kawhi and a player that you can't rely on and a superstar who always falls short except for that one time in Toronto. In recent memory, of course, his Spurs years were something different, but now he's on the other side of 30. So I give him a D because, Russell Westbrook can't be your best offensive player in that series against the Suns.
Well, as we know, and we talked a bit offline about, Westbrook is already on vacation. So I feel like he's just living his life.
Where's he at?
He's in Cabo, but I won't tell you where. Okay, so let's move on to the Miami Heat, who became the 6th number 8 seed to take down a 1 seed in the first round. They took down the Bucks. What would you give them, Brian?
You have to give him an A because, my gosh, what an incredible performance. Jimmy Butler gets A++, just tremendous showing. And the thing about this is history will remember this as one of the great upsets in NBA history. I don't know if history will remember that they lost 2 rotation players for the season in this series. They dealt with Tyler Hero getting knocked out 15 minutes into Game 1 for the series. Victor Oladipo, who sometimes was a valuable player off the bench for them, knocked out for a year in this series. So not only did they deliver at the highest level, including closing out in Milwaukee, but did it despite having those losses. And I'll tell you what, advantage for the Knicks, obviously, that they have home court starting today, because that's unbelievable that they wake up as a 5 seed with home court in the second round. But how could you not take the Heat incredibly seriously after their run last year, after what they've already done this year?
Himmy Hebo, Himmy Butler, Him Duncan gets an A+ for me. 98 points in games 4 and 5. That's an NBA record as it relates to back-to-back closeout opportunities. Of course, game 5 being the closeout opportunity. So the Heat, A+.
All right, let's move on to the Bucks. We already said that their season was not a success. Brian, what grade would you give them?
D-, because I want to say failure, but I don't want to get into all that. Giannis did miss 2.5 games or whatever. They blew a lead in the fourth quarter in game 4, blew a lead in the fourth quarter at home in game 5, and completely looked out of their element in the end of the fourth quarter. Not acceptable.
I gave them an F, and if we're not going to use the word failure, I will say that it represents freaking sad.
You're going to be a free agent this summer. What do you think about the chances that you could be back here next season?
I think they can possibly be good. I'm leaving that, to my agent, Mike George, to handle that. And me just focus on the summer, focus on what I can get better, focus on how I can, contribute to getting better.
Dillon, just how do you evaluate this season for you in totality?
New role. I got better at, being on the defensive side, taking more of, ownership on that side. Seeing how, the seasons can go up and down, regardless of trying to keep an even keel, and knowing that, I got to get better, shooting the basketball.
DB, do you regret the comments made after game 2 with how it then evolved into this huge wave of putting the spotlight on you and your team, and whether or not it, geeked up LeBron or whatever, but do you regret making those comments after game 2?
No. That's who I am. I don't regret it. I'm a competitor. I compete. I don't think it got LeBron geeked up. Is he back in the playoffs? It's been a little while, so I think he was ready to play. And overall, we just got beat by a better team, bigger team. Guys that have their whole team, their whole pieces there. And I'm just gonna continue to be me and get better at what I do.
Hey Dillon, do you think the perceived perception of you takes away from what you actually do on the court?
I only think it takes away from what calls have been made, or for instance, like the flagrant fouls, there's already a persona on it, so it kind of makes them lean into that direction. But that's who I am. That's what I'm gonna be, and at the end of the day, it's just competition. It's competing, and most people are scared to compete, and that's why they get rattled or feel some type of way when I play against them. It's because I'm trying to compete at the highest level I can, and that's the only way that I got into this league, got into this realm of where I'm at now. So I'm not going to change. I'm going to keep doing what I do and get better.
Dillon, when Jaren won his Defensive Player of the Year award, one of the first things he said was it took having you on his right side. He saw it as both of you guys contributing to that. When you saw the strides that this team made defensively from the beginning of the season towards the end, how much pride do you guys take into that, and how much will that help you, knowing where you are defensively, get better offensively as well?
I feel like, we enable each other on that defensive end, me and Jaren, and, he got so much better towards the season, towards the end of the season with it. I don't think I, lost anything, on the offensive end. I was just there to, 3-and-D, shoot, and play defense. I got way more to my game than that. I'm just going to brush up back on that. And, my defense will never leave, even though I came into this league without that defensive persona.
Dillon, back here. Taylor just talked about less talk, more walk next season. Is that an environment you feel you could operate under if you are back here next year?
I could operate in any environment. With the talking, I did that. I do that for one, to create an advantage for myself. And two, I try to create this matchup between my opponent. And, maybe sometimes that gets the best of me and it's too much, for other people. But that's just the way, I work, I operate. That's what you're supposed to have on the defensive end, or else you're just going to be like the rest of these guys, just going through the motions. So, I knew when my role changed that I had to motivate myself every single day to come in here and work. And, that's what I did. And I just, kept it real.
Parker.
Dillon, just with the ups and downs of the season, you've mentioned yourself as a veteran in the locker room and a leader for this team. How did you see yourself grow as a veteran leader in the midst of all the adversity faced this season?
My roles has changed regardless of with the ups and downs. I got put into, try to mold D-Rod and Jake and those guys as a leader, trying to, get them to know what the NBA is all about, how to be professional, regardless of, what happened from last year to this year, be a professional and not be either a cancer or something in this locker room. And then just ultimately trying to, voice my opinions to my teammates on how we can get better.
Dillon, with your shooting at the end of the season, do you think it was an extended slump, or just at any point do you feel like it did get into your head and did affect your performance in that way?
It could have been an extended slump. I'm not sure. They started just, not even guarding me out there in the series. I wish I could have got some play calls so I can find my rhythm and find some stuff like that. But, it wasn't in the cards for our team.
Last one,
You talked about the mental game a lot. Obviously, there's been a lot of criticism since the end of the series. How have you sort of handled that for yourself?
I brush it off. I'm way more capable of what I've shown, and I think that's